Pokemon games are known for their incredible music, and it can be really tough to pick the best in each one, but what's even harder is to pick the worst in these amazing soundtracks. Thankfully today I'm joined by Jacob Cruz to help me find the best and worst track in every game.
Pokemon Red and Blue may have been the first games in the franchise, but they still have an incredible soundtrack, especially considering the hardware limitations of the Game Boy. That being said, I would say that the best song here is actually the first one you hear when you boot up the game. The opening theme of Pokemon is one of the most nostalgic and memorable pieces of music in the entirety of gaming, not just Pokemon. The first battle we ever see in that opening cutscene with Gengar and Nidorino is simply iconic combined with this music. I know this might not be the highest quality or best version of this song with all of the times it's been remade, but I think there is no denying the importance of it in Pokemon history. But while I do think this soundtrack is incredible, I still do have to pick a worse song here, and I think I'll pick the music you hear just before Victory Road. There's nothing particularly iconic about this track besides it setting the mood for the final dungeon. It's just a bit repetitive and definitely not as good as the end of journey songs we get in the rest of the games.
Before I talk about Gen 2, while you watch this video, if you end up agreeing with any of our picks, make sure you hit subscribe. And if you disagree with any of the picks, go ahead and leave a comment on what was yours. Alright, let's get into Gen 2. Despite being on the same console as Gen 1, the second generation of Pokemon took a massive jump in the quality of the music. It seems like the developers wanted the music to fit the scenery and atmosphere of the Johto region very closely with the more Japanese-inspired design choices. But if I had to pick my favorite song from this generation, I would have to go with Azalea Town. For some reason, the song feels like a home away from home. In-game, you reach Azalea Town after you've been on your adventure for a little while, and this is the point right before you make it to the biggest city in Johto, Goldenrod. In a way, it's like the calm before the storm where your journey really begins. The worst song in Pokemon Crystal is easily Dragon's Den. I mean, this is probably one of the worst songs on the list because it literally hurts your ears to listen to. What can I really say here? I mean, everything is out of tune, and it's like the composer wanted to put as much noise in your ears as possible.
Generation 3 has arguably one of the best soundtracks in all of Pokemon, so picking the best song here feels nearly impossible. There's so many great tracks like Little Root Town, Petalburg City, but the one I'm gonna go with is Rustboro City. This track has a unique beachy vibe that fits really well with it being on a coast. It's really a pleasure every time I play through Emerald to hear this song again, and I really do listen to it quite often while I'm relaxing or doing work. But once again, it's really unfortunate that I have to pick a worst song in this game. Much like Gen 2, Gen 3 has a lot of attention to detail and making sure every song fits the vibe, including the song I'm going to pick, Slateport City. I want to say this isn't a bad song, and I'd say it fits the vibe of being a port city really well. The issue is, I just don't like how it sounds as much as the rest of the soundtrack. It's just a little too jarring with the bells at the start of the song, although the rest I wouldn't say is bad or anything. I don't know, y'all are probably gonna hate me for this. Going back to Kanto, FireRed and LeafGreen bring the first remakes of the Gen 1 soundtrack, and I have to say, it's great. Pretty much every song in the original is remade better in this, although it doesn't change or remix that much. Anyway, my favorite remake in this game has to be the trainer battle theme. This is one of my favorite battle themes in all of Pokemon, and I think it just has so much going on in the best possible way. It never gets bland and has a ton of instrumentation within it. There are plenty of great songs in this game, but I really do feel impressed whenever I listen to this one. Now, if I had to pick the worst song in Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen, I'd probably have to go with the Pokemon Mansion. Look, I don't think this is a bad song, and I actually think it fits the tone of the area pretty well. The only reason this is the worst is just because it feels a little noisy and all over the place. And comparing it to the rest of the soundtrack, this song definitely feels a step below them.
The soundtrack for Gen 4 is absolutely fantastic. Although a lot of the areas do look kind of similar in the game, there's a few that stand out, and I think these have really strong songs. But out of all the areas, I think the best song is in the place that's the most unique in the Sinnoh region. At the end of the Distortion Realm in Pokemon Platinum, when you face Giratina, you hear one of the most epic battle tracks I've heard in any game. This is one of those songs that has so much going on, but has so many different phases within the song, it perfectly accompanies the epic battle you're in. As great as the Gen 4 soundtrack is, there's a couple songs I don't love, but none that I think are deliberately bad. But if I had to choose the worst song, I have to go with Veilstone City. Now this song is not bad, but for me it sounds kind of underwhelming for what's supposed to be the biggest city in the region. It does kind of give the city nighttime vibe, but I don't know, it just doesn't mesh with me. The best song in HeartGold SoulSilver is, in my opinion, National Park. While many of the original songs from Gen 2 are made beautifully in this, I think the one that got overhauled for the better is the theme from National Park. This area of the game is perhaps the most memorable because of how much of a contrast it has from the areas before it. Goldenrod City and the Pokathlethon are very loud and fast-paced, but just around the corner you can make your way into the National Park and instantly the tone shifts to a more peaceful and calming one. Even though this isn't the largest area in the game and you kind of walk right through it, I think it still acts as a beautiful place of rest before the continuation of your journey, and this music helps it achieve that goal extremely well. Now for the worst track, I'm not gonna lie, I literally don't know if there's a single bad song in this game. I spent like half an hour just listening to the more unknown tracks in OST, and I really didn't find any holes. Even the songs that used to be kind of mid in Crystal have been fixed to be really nice, so I guess I'm gonna go with the song used in the Olivine Lighthouse and Mount Silver as my least favorite track. It literally isn't bad at all. I know I've said that a few times, but I guess it just doesn't have the memorability that most of the other tracks in this game have.
Pokemon Black and White has some of the most unique and epic tracks in the entire franchise. Whether it's town themes or battle music, this game really impresses me in the music department. This game in particular is probably one of the hardest on the list to decide a top song for. I mean, even the route themes like Route 10 could be argued as the best song. But today I'm going to go ahead and pick the song that plays when you battle the Elite Four. While most Elite Four battle themes are usually epic enough, this song takes it above and beyond the usual feeling. There are no dull moments in this track, and every time I play through Black and White, I look forward to hearing this epic song at the end of my journey. Now, my selection for the worst song in Black and White might very well be the most controversial, but I really don't understand why. Ghetsis' battle theme is incredibly underwhelming and boring. It sounds like a badly inspired version of Sephiroth's battle theme from Final Fantasy VII. Despite Ghetsis essentially being the main villain of the game, his theme attempts at being menacing, but it just ends up being lackluster to me. It also doesn't help that the fight with N has some of the best battle music in all of Pokemon, so I don't know, am I crazy for feeling this way about this song? Let me know. Black and White 2 shares a large portion of its soundtrack with the original Black and White, despite being entirely new games. Interestingly enough, the best song from the sequel is, in my opinion, the very first song you hear in your adventure, Aspertia City. This truly feels like a song meant for the start of an adventure. In a way, it gives me two separate feelings, one of familiarity, like you're returning to Unova once again after your first journey, and another feeling of new beginnings, like you're about to go on yet another massive adventure. To me, this was the perfect way to start the sequel of Black and White, and it has left an impression on me for years. For the worst song in Black and White 2, I'm actually going to go with a pretty unique pick. If you didn't know, Reversal Mountain actually has two different tracks that play depending on your version. In White 2, the song is pretty energetic and a really fun track throughout, reflecting the energy in the active volcano. However, in Black 2, the cave is filled with water instead of lava, so the track is lacking a lot of energy unfortunately, so I'm gonna say that the Black 2 version is probably the worst track added into this game. It's definitely not bad, but it's just super forgettable for me.
Now for Gen 6, this was the first generation to really take a step up in sound quality and instrumentation now that it was on the 3DS. However, I don't necessarily think this is that amazing of a soundtrack. I mean, it's good, but nothing like a lot of the other games. That being said, there are a few great songs. The gym battle music is pretty intense, the bicycle music is great, but ultimately, I think Lumio City is the best. In order to set the tone for Lumio City being the largest city in Pokemon history at that point, they need to make a song that felt extravagant and grand, and that's exactly what they did. In the many nods to Gen 1 that Gen 6 gives, the song that I'm about to pick is an example of one that shouldn't have been here. The music that plays in Lysander Labs pays homage to the original Team Rocket HQ and combines it with Lysander's battle theme. The issue? Well, it's just slow-paced, boring, and doesn't really feel like a complete song, almost like two songs competing with each other. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire's remake of the original Gen 3 OST is amazing, and this was the game that got me into the Pokemon series. Basically, every single song in the game is better in this version, so I thought I'd be picking one of those songs as my best tier. That is, until I remembered one of the last pieces of music you hear in the game, Zinnia's theme. You face Zinnia at the very end of the post-game, and her battle theme is entirely new to the player. I think I can speak for everyone when I say this, but hearing this for the first time was insane. Also, what was happening in the game itself was pretty epic, so of course that dramatic music helped make the moment even better. The only issue about that is you really don't get to listen to it as long as other boss themes, since you have like the strongest Pokemon ever to battle her with. I'm not really sure what I would consider the worst song here to be honest. There's a few songs that the game remade that I think maybe could have been a little better, such as Route 113, but I don't think that's particularly bad or anything. I guess the one song I probably would never listen to again is the Petalburg Wood music. It's a very typical forest theme that's kind of creepy, but nothing crazy. Now I interrupt this video to say, subscribe if you love Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire.
Sun and Moon has one of the most diverse soundtracks in Pokemon. Originally, I expected this to have a majority of tropical tracks, and while there is no shortage of them, I think there are plenty of unique songs to choose from. Honestly, you hear some of the best music at the very start of the game, like in Howley City. However, I think that the best and most memorable track in the game is Lily's theme. Lily is probably the most popular character in the Pokemon games, and I feel like besides her character being great, this music is a big reason as to why. It's so peaceful and elegant while also feeling a little bit mysterious, mirroring how Lily's lore has a lot more to it than she lets on. Overall, this is one of my favorite songs in all of Pokemon. The worst song in Sun and Moon is one of the only tracks on this list in which I really could never listen to. Haina Desert's music is as mundane as traversing this area of the game. If you went to ChatGPT and asked it to generate you the most generic desert music for a video game ever, this is probably what it would give you. Fortunately, this portion of the game is basically completely optional, and I don't know why anyone would go here unless you were trying to complete everything in the game. Ultra Sun and Moon's music is pretty much the exact same as the originals, except for a few new tracks for the extra content, along with a couple replacements for original tracks like the trainer battle music. I don't really think there's a need for this to have a whole dedicated segment, but I figured I would at least mention it. There is one song I do think is pretty great in these games though, and that's the Team Rainbow Rocket battle music. I think it pays great homage to the original Team Rocket battle theme while adding a lot to it. Besides that, I don't really want to call any of these new tracks here the worst since there's barely any in the first place. Pokemon Let's Go has some of the best music in all of Pokemon. I know that might sound crazy, but go ahead and listen to all of the Gen 1 classics remade in this game. They're phenomenal. I definitely had a few tracks in my mind when picking my favorite here, but I think I'm going to go with Pokemon Let's Go's version of Blue's Champion theme. I know a lot of people don't love the rival in this game, and while I can kind of agree, there's no denying how cool this game's version of the Champion theme sounds. With the epic guitar and percussion, it really does resemble some of the great battle music from Gen 6. As for the worst song in Pokemon Let's Go, I think I'm actually going to do something bold. I'm going to choose the same song I chose for FireRed, the Pokemon Mansion. While I originally didn't like FireRed's version of the song for being a little too noisy, I actually don't like Let's Go's version for a completely different reason. While it may sound a little less messy, now the Pokemon Mansion sounds like a goofy circus. At least in FireRed, the music still felt pretty creepy even if it didn't sound good to me. But here, the atmosphere of one of the darkest areas in the game is completely ruined by the music composition.
Generation 8 gave us the introduction of one of the most surprising and interesting songs in the history of Pokemon, and what I believe is the first time they've ever done this. The gym battle theme is a dynamic track, meaning the song actively changes depending on the state of the battle, and although the Sword and Shield soundtrack definitely has some great tracks like Sonia's theme or the Slumbering Weld, my favorite song has to be the gym battle theme for how immersive and how unique the track is. The worst song in Sword and Shield is easily Hulberry. When I think of a coastal city, I want to feel somewhat relaxed or at ease. Hulberry's music is flat out annoying and does not fit the mood of the town at all. This is definitely one criticism I have of Sword and Shield overall. The town themes are just not it for the most part, to put it simply, and this is the prime example as to why. As bad as I think that Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are, I cannot deny that the soundtracks are actually really good. Sure, there's a few duds, but the majority of it is really solid. Now, I know that a few of you may be mad that I didn't give this song best for Gen 4, but I think I'll do it justice now. The best song here is Cynthia's battle theme. I mean, just listen to this tune yourself and tell me this doesn't set the stage for an epic battle. Even if the music wasn't here, the battle is tremendously difficult, so adding this intense track makes it really one of the most memorable fights in any Pokemon, despite being probably the most forgettable game. As for the worst song here, I can pretty easily say that Victory Road takes that spot. I honestly think that Victory Road in this game is one of the least fun and dragged out in the franchise, and it really doesn't help that the music is just grating after hearing it for like an hour. Legends Arceus was really the first game in the franchise to branch away from the music with super recognizable melodies and instead opted for a mostly ambient theme for the big overworld areas. Think kinda like what Breath of the Wild did with the Zelda series. I think for the most part this was done very well, and the music is very good at setting the atmosphere, especially considering most of the tracks in this game pay some homage to the original Gen 4 games. Although these take up most of the game, there are some tracks that are like the previous Pokemon games in terms of standing out. The best of these, and the best track in the game in my opinion, is, spoiler alert if you've never played Pokemon Legends Arceus, Volo's battle theme at the end of the game. I don't think I need to make a big deal about the obvious reference to Cynthia's theme, but I do need to mention it. The fact that it starts off with Cynthia's intro transitioning into the remix battle music really makes you remember the days of Pokemon Platinum facing off against Cynthia for the first time. Volo even uses a pretty similar team to her, and while this technically might be cheating, I do want to say that this fight is several phases with each having a different track. When you defeat Volo, he comes back and summons Giratina, in which we hear two different versions of Giratina's theme remixed as well, the latter of which having an insane guitar being played that almost rivals the epicness of the original fight in Gen 4. With all that being said, the sequencing of this fight is accompanied by the perfect score, so I think it's fair to group them together somewhat, because I don't think that this is particularly controversial though. I haven't met anyone who thinks these songs don't deserve the #1 spot, at least a little bit. So Legends Arceus is one of those games that really struggles to have a bad song, not because every song is amazing, but just because it doesn't try to make every song a hit. A lot of the tracks are simply ambience to accompany the overall gameplay. However, for that reason, I'm actually a lot more critical about the main themes in the game, since there are fewer than a typical Pokemon game. In fact, when I heard that there would be only one major town in this game, I expected the main theme of it to be amazing, and for Jubilee Village, unfortunately I was very torn. While it eventually does develop into a much deeper and great track as you progress in the game, the Jubilee Village theme is incredibly repetitive at the start of your journey. Like, it's literally the same 4 bars repeating over and over again for the first few hours of the game. I understand it's intentionally bare bones to represent the growth of the player over the course of the game, but did it have to be this bad?
Pokemon Scarlet and Violet have an incredible soundtrack, although I think its strongest tracks are definitely the battle themes. To be honest, this kind of suffers from the same thing every open world game struggles with: boring open world music. Well, unless you're Zelda, of course. Well, I guess I can't call it terrible, but in Scarlet and Violet, the music in these open areas just leaves a lot to be desired. Well, except for Area 0. At first, I thought for sure this would be my pick for the best song in the game. That is, until I played the final boss track. This absolutely blew my mind the first time I heard it. As an avid fan of the work of Toby Fox, hearing his inhuman musical composition skills in a Pokemon game really put a smile on my face. And the fact that he had influence on the entire sound of Area Zero was simply amazing, with all of that culminating into this ridiculous track for the final boss fight that truly rivals some of the greatest JRPG final boss tracks. What if I told you 10 years ago that one day the credits of a Pokemon game would have music made by Ed Sheeran?
You see tonight, it could go either.
Well, unfortunately, that's the timeline we landed in. I mean, this was a complete jump scare when I beat Scarlet and Violet. I actually forgot that Pokemon had collabed with Ed Sheeran here, so hearing it was a crazy immersion break. But yeah, this was definitely the worst song in Gen 9. I don't care if you're an Ed Sheeran fan, this song has no place in a Pokemon game. Alright, now, I don't think any song on this list has shocked me more than my pick for Pokemon Legends ZA. At first, I thought the obvious pick would be the Lumio City theme rearranged for this game. However, after playing through this game, there is one song that completely blew me away, and it very well might be the best song in all of Pokemon, and that is Jason's battle theme. I mean, this feels like it was taken straight out of a Sonic game and fit to set the mood of Jason's crazy character. I don't believe this genre of music has ever been used in Pokemon before this, which is kind of interesting since it works so well here. Also, am I saying Jason's name right? I don't know, but I do love this song. Look, Pokemon Legends ZA doesn't really have any bad songs. However, this pick is going to be a little bit of a funny one. Throughout the game, you have to fight a lot of battles. Like, I know that's the point of Pokemon, but it's much more emphasized here. And I gotta say, that song they use for trainer battles in the Royale is so annoying. I have to say that I think this is a pretty fun and groovy song, but after hearing it 30 times in a row, it does get old after a while.
Now we've gone over all the main series games, and if you're still watching, here's a reward for you. So there are an unfathomable amount of spin-offs, so unfortunately I can't go over every single one, but anyway, here are 3 of them. Pokopia only released last month when you're seeing this, but has been a complete system seller. At the time of writing, it's still hard to find quote-unquote physical copy of this. It has a very relaxing soundtrack that of course fits the game's tone as a cozy world builder. A lot of marimbas and light percussion really bring this all to life. This is music you can study to, and it's also pretty cool how it redoes a lot of existing tracks. My favorite here is Dream Island. It has a guitar and some winds and has a very nostalgic sound. I like the sort of summery vibe it goes for as well, and I also hear a clarinet in it, so shout out fellow clarinet players. So there are no bad tracks in this game, it's extremely high quality, but if I had to pick a worst, I guess Withered Wasteland Rainy Night. I don't even want to call this the worst because it isn't bad like I said, it's actually quite calming, but I just prefer it the least compared to the other tracks that show up here.
Gale of Darkness has been getting a lot more attention recently with it coming to Nintendo Switch Online, so I figured why not include it here. I really love the HQ Lab theme, but my pick is the Mirror Bee battle. I mean, come on, how do I go with anything else here? It's just so good. Mirror Bee's theme is also really good. Gale of Darkness has a pretty solid soundtrack, but the worst for me is Cypher Key Layer. It's more atmospheric, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I just found it to stand out the least to me when listening to the entire OST.
Pokken Tournament has a very varied soundtrack that's extremely underrated. Tellertown Autumn is a fantastic piece that has some great strings playing and really gives off that fall feel, but my favorite here is Digger's Beeland. Just sounds like a Pokemon-themed amusement park and is super fun. And you know what, that kind of makes me want a Pokemon-themed amusement park. Now, finding the worst here was super difficult since the soundtrack is very consistent. After some thought though, I went with Power Training Gym. It's just kind of boring to me and doesn't really hit me much. Still pretty good though, which is a testament to how slept on the soundtrack really is. And that is the best and worst song in every mainline Pokemon game, as well as a couple spin-offs. Maybe if you all subscribe and comment on this video saying you want a video like this on every single spin-off, we may just work on that. But big thanks to Jacob Cruz for joining me once again, as he knows way more about Pokemon than me. We worked on a video a few months ago going over each game's biggest issue, and you might want to check that out. Now, if you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe to myself and Jacob as well, as he's made a ton of great Pokemon videos you'll almost certainly enjoy. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.